Hello everyone and welcome to another Gramolly Roundtables. This time we are joined by the members of the Indian team in this year's International Olympiads. Everyone, introduce yourselves.
Hello guys, I'm Aditya. I'm currently studying in class 12 and I'm preparing for JEE. This year I went to IPhO 2023 in Japan and got a gold medal there.
Hi, I'm Atul. I'm currently a freshman at MIT and I did not give JEE. I won a gold at the Math Olympiad this year in Japan and I like cats.
Hello everyone, I'm Avaneesh and I'm currently in class 11th. This year I took part in the International Chemistry Olympiad held in Zurich, Switzerland, and I won a silver medal.
Hello everyone, I'm Faraz. I'm from Mumbai, currently in 12th grade, ostensibly preparing for the JEE. I won a silver medal at the International Linguistics Olympiad in Bulgaria this year.
Hello everyone, I'm Sahil. I've also left school and I'm at MIT. I represented India at IOAA twice, once in 2022 and 2023, and this year I won a gold medal. And a fun fact, I guess, about myself is that I like talking to people and I like making music.
All right, nice to meet all of you. So let's begin. So my first question to all of you is, can you elaborate on what the selection procedure is for your respective Olympiads from India like? Like, can you tell the step-by-step pathway which you followed to reach the international Olympiads? Let's start with Aditya.
So for the Physics Olympiad, the first stage is NSEP, which is usually held in November end, and the next stage is IPhO, which is usually held in January or February, and the next stage is orientation cum selection camp, which is held at HPCSC, generally around April, and then we have the final stage, International Physics Olympiad, which, will, which is generally held in the time of July.
All right. So Atul, can you tell us about how Math Olympiad works in India?
So for Math Olympiad, it's been changing the past couple of years due to COVID, but we're sort of back to how it was before. So the first stage is the IOQM, which is integer type answering. All answers are between 0 to 99. Then some students are selected. The next stage is RMO, the Regional Math Olympiad. This is proof-based, 6 questions in I think 3 hours. The next stage is INMO, the Indian National Math Olympiad. This has also 6 questions, but 4 hours long. And finally, students from these, around 60 of them are selected for the IMO training camp that happens in the HPCSE campus, and it's around a month long. And during the camp, there are 4 team selection tests that happen. That based on who does the best in it, the top 6 represent India at the IMO.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So let's move on to Avanish.
So the procedure for chemistry is quite similar to that of physics. So the first stage is held usually November end, and that consists of multiple choice questions, both single correct and multi correct. The next stage is usually held at the end of January, in which there are subjective problems. Then the top 35 students are selected for the OCSC camp, in which you have both theory as well as practical examinations. They also take classes and teach you some advanced concepts. After which they select the final four-member team, which represents India at the Olympiad, which is usually held in the latter half of July.
Okay, so I'll be coming back for this OCSC experience and how you went through it. But for now, let's move on to Faraz and Linguistics Olympiad.
Hi. So the Linguistics Olympiad program in India happens in like 3 stages. First is the Panini Linguistics Olympiad, which is I think a 6 hour test with sorry a 4 hour test with 6 problems, and it is used to select shortlist around 40 students who appear in the Asia Pacific Linguistics Olympiad, and from the APLO top 4 or top 8 depending on the year are selected to represent India at the IOL.
Okay, so for the linguistics Olympiad, what is the general type of questions which, if you can answer in brief right now?
But mostly these are logical problems, but obviously they are with a language twist. So you're given unfamiliar data in a language and you had to decipher the rules of the language.
Okay, so you have to practice about it, and okay, I'll come back to that later on. So now let's move on to Sahil.
Overall structure of Astronomy Olympiad in India also follows very closely with physics and chemistry. We have a first stage based on MCQ that's held in November called NSEA. Then around 250 to 300 students are selected for the subjective round called the INAO. This is held in around January or February. Then from here, 30 plus 15-ish students are selected. I broke it down into two parts because I'll come to that later. They're selected for the OCSC, which is a camp for these students, and there are multiple TSTs inside of this camp along with lectures. And then the final five-member team is selected based on the TSTs that represent India at the IOAA in around mid-August-ish. So the reason I broke it down into two parts is although it follows very much closely with NSEP and NSEC, for astronomy, the student body is divided into two parts, Group A and Group B. Like this is because the people till class 11, like say from 9, 10, 11 are put into one group and class 12 people are put into another group. So this is how the progression follows. So even for selection in NSEA and then after that selection for the OCSC through the INAO, this group structure is followed. But once you come to the OCSC, it's all open. Like there is no group structure.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. For this Olympiad, what would you say are the prerequisites to start, and how difficult are the Olympiad in general compared to more standard examinations like the JEE? Aditya, you can start.
So the physics Olympiad, if we talk about the level of IPhO, it is slightly harder than JEE, not much harder. Syllabus is also mostly overlapping, and but there are some topics in IPhO syllabus which are not part of JEE syllabus. Yeah,
So could you elaborate on this a bit? Suppose the topics which aren't there in JEE that will be there in IPHO,
like
and stage-wise how it changes.
like for NACP, that's mostly subjective. That's objective and like that's pretty easy. Like I would say that is easier than JEE. And for INPHO, I believe that is slightly harder than JEE physics because it is subjective. And the syllabus till INPHO is the same as the JEE syllabus. And then for the next round OCSC, it it gets a little bit more harder, and then the syllabus becomes the same as the IPH syllabus, which in addition to the J syllabus includes topics like quantum mechanics and special relativity. Yeah, and
Okay,
also
thank.
the orientation cum selection camp includes that experimental part.
Okay, we can talk about the OCSC a bit later. For now, Atul, could you elaborate?
Yes, so for Math Olympiad, I don't think there's any prerequisites apart from actually being interested in the subject. When you ask about how it compares to other exams, I would say there is little or like no overlap because Math Olympiad is sort of a niche thing. It's pretty separate from JEE syllabus, school syllabus, and all of those things. Basically, here, the topics that are included are only things before calculus and stuff that is probably taught in schools, plus some additional topics such as, say, graph theory and other things that are only for these Olympiads and also relevant in math research. So basically, for these problems, you just have very few for example, the IMO, three problems in 4.5 hours. The trick is to like not do questions quickly. That's irrelevant almost. It's about being able to come up with the ideas required to solve the problem because you may need to come up with things that you've never done before.
Okay, and if you could give any measure of difficulty, or would you rather not?
I think it's really subjective based on how much someone actually likes math, and especially once you start doing math stuff, you get an intuition and stuff comes more naturally. So I think it's really subjective.
Okay, thank you. Avnish?
Yeah. So, like Atul actually said, the prerequisite is obviously interest in chemistry. If we take the first level, which is NSCC, then the level of questions is quite similar to JEE, and the syllabus is also what is taught in JEE, organic and physical, all three of them. Once we get to INCHO, the syllabus becomes the questions are obviously tougher because it's a subjective paper, and there are some slight concepts in organic and inorganic which are new. OCSC altogether is a different thing because many of the concepts asked there are totally different from what is usually taught, and often they have to hold classes to teach that to the students before they ask it in the test because that's something you won't usually study on your own.
Okay, could you elaborate on these topics?
Well, actually, it depends from country to country because each country has its own set of problems or the type of problems that it wishes to ask in the Olympiad. So each year it changes, and they give us sort of preparatory problems to the students that tell you that these are the concepts which we will be focusing on. So, for instance, in my year, this year we had cyclo additions and peptide synthesis in organic chemistry. For physical chemistry, they had enzyme catalysis, which was new, and for inorganic chemistry they had diagrams like these the Poibex diagrams and some the electrochemical reductions in coordination compounds, so such concepts were new.
Okay, thank you. Faraz?
For the linguistics Olympiads, there are literally zero prerequisite. You can just go and try out the problems. You can theoretically make it into team without having any long knowledge of linguistics, I guess. But it really helps to have a lot knowledge of linguistics, I guess. Uh, and yeah, difficulty wise, again, I'd say it's very subjective, and it is in a domain of itself. It's not really similar to any other Olympiads, except I think it's kind of similar to math because the problems do require you to think in a way that you have never thought before. Usually, after you solve a problem, you're like, okay, I never would have thought that languages could have behaved in this manner. And there are like couple thousand of languages. There's always room for novel techniques. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sahil?
Yeah, so for astronomy Olympiad, like you do need some background in physics to be able to clear NSEA and move on to INAO, but it's not the entirety of the high school syllabus of class 11 and 12. There are certain topics in class 11, such as gravitation or optics, that are definitely much more relevant to Astro Olympiad. And if you have a decent grip on that, along with a decent grip on JEE mathematics of basically mostly class 11 people, it should not be very hard to clear NSEA. Uh, Apart from that, like after you clear NSEA for the INAO, again, like there is usually one pure astro based question, but most of the others are very much physics based or maybe one math based questions, which can be cleared with a good grip on physics of again these very important topics of class 11 and 12. So, but after you clear INAO, then like the topics get more astronomy based, and you don't need to be afraid about that because basically before asking those questions in the TST, again they teach those topics in the lectures at the OCSC. So that's when it gets more astronomy type. Comment on the difficulty level compared to JEE. I'd say like there is not much correlation with the JEE syllabus once you get to like after OCSC in terms of the material that is being asked. And I would say the difficulty varies. Like there are some very easy questions which are like not even NSEA level at the international stage I'm talking about. But then there are some questions that would probably much tougher than the standard JEE questions and require you like 1 or 2 hours of effort to work on them. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you for your answers. So now what I really want to ask you all about is how was the journey through to preparing for these Olympiads? Like, how did you start? Which class? Which material did you use? And like, what was the basic milestones that you achieved along the way? So let's start with Aditya only.
So I started preparing for physics Olympiad when I entered class 11, but I was not very serious when I entered. Like I didn't spend too much time for preparation. I only got serious when it was like uh, a month and a half before NACP, and then at that time I mostly did. I didn't practice too many difficult questions. I focused mainly on easy questions because that's what is asked in NACP. And uh, then, like, also it's for the physics Olympiad, the J preparation helps a lot for each stage pretty much. So I didn't have to do that much, except apart from J preparation. Uh, Another major thing that I had to do apart from J preparation was for OCSC, where I had to practice some experimental stuff. I practiced just because I thought that it would be useful, but like they also train us there to use the experimental apparatus, and pretty much what they ask in exams, they teach that before that.
Okay. So a lot of question that many people have is, how do you cover the entire 11th and 12th syllabus in just 6 or 7 months since its beginning of 11th to write an OCP, clear it, and then proceed to prepare for info?
Mm, Basically for NACP, you I think we should do some basic book. Like what I did was that I did just HC Verma and I didn't do too many high level books before NACP.
Okay, and so like when you cleared these exams, what for school were you getting in the mock tests, or like what was your confidence before you went into the exam hall and started giving the exam?
I had to say, uh, I mean, I didn't really think about confidence and things. Like I just gave it.
Okay, so you were chill about giving the exam and not really worried about the outcome.
Yeah.
Alright, that's nice to hear. So I'll get back to the OCC part later on. Thank you for your answer. Let's move on to Atul now.
So I think I knew about Math Olympiad in ninth grade, but I wasn't seriously preparing for it until I think the middle of 10th grade. So yeah, there were a couple of books that are usually recommended, but especially in math, it doesn't really matter what book you're using because the real thing is to do a lot of problems and build your math intuition. So like there were a couple of seniors who had like gone to the IMO in the past who helped me out and like I solved problems together with them, and I think that is something that really helped me get better at math.
Okay, so when you started your preparation in mid 10th, so it must have taken a little bit of time to get up to the level of RMO or INMO. So what level of problems did you solve throughout the time period? Like maybe you started with some easy problem sets and then move on to harder ones. So can you name some of them?
I think there is the Art of Problem Solving website, which has a giant repository of problems, like from all countries and all international contests, like sometimes even till 1950. You have just a large number of problems. So you just pick a good source. For a beginner thing, maybe that would involve taking past India contests itself and just do problems. I think that is something that will help.
Okay,
And not
so
just doing problems, but also like if you're not able to solve a problem and you look at the solution, like actually try and understand the solution and not just think, oh, I didn't solve it, because there is something to learn from being able to solve a problem. You can see if there was an idea that you missed or something of the sort.
okay, so you started in mid 10th, and then how much time did it take you roughly to reach the level of clearing INMO or having a chance at IMO?
So I think in ninth grade itself, I had written the RMO, but I got a score of like 2 out of 102. But yeah, the next year, I think once I began preparing, I was able to give the INMO. But due to the selection process that year, it was just INMO and then directly the team. So just took the top six, and I think I was 15th that year. But yeah, the next year I was able to participate in INMO and make it to the IMO. This was last year.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Let's move on to Avnish.
Yeah, so actually I was introduced to the Olympiads in class ninth when I was preparing for IJSO, and well, I gave IJSO and I got selected in the team, and also that continued. And after the first stage of IJSO, for me, because of the COVID restrictions and all, it happened together, the first and second stage. So once that was done, I thought of targeting a senior science Olympiad class 10th, and I chose chemistry. So I started preparing, I would say, at the beginning of my class 10th, and my serious preparation it started just like maybe 2 3 months after that. And I finished. Firstly, I finished all the JEE syllabus of physical chemistry and inorganic chemistry. I wasn't able to do all of organic. I could do just a good chunk of it. And then after NSCC, what I did was I focused on solving the IChO preparatory problems of previous years, which there's a site for that, which has a lot of previous year collection problems, and even past year actual competition problems are available there. So I solved those, after which I gave INCHO, and yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay, so many people have this particular problem that they are not comfortable with inorganic chemistry or organic chemistry because, first of all, it has too many facts, too many reagents, and you have to get a sense of the hang of it. So, how do you develop that idea and intuition?
For some reason, I just felt like I didn't take it as something I had to memorize. It was just something I had to get familiar with. So I just read it a couple of times and I looked for what was interesting in it. Like when I think of inorganic chemistry, I think of colors and interesting reactions that happen. So once I see those, I can actually like then you just sort of get acquainted to how the molecules should behave, and then you get the hang of it. Already. I mean, it's something that develops, and I'm thankful that it did for me.
Okay, so can you tell me which books you used mainly for preparation till INCHO?
Okay, so for physical chemistry practice problems, I mainly use Neeraj Kumar's physical chemistry questions, and I used Sudarshan Guha's JDLE for IOC. For inorganic chemistry, I mainly refer to Stuart Warren Clayton.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Faraz. So, Faraz, linguistics, I believe, is not a field familiar to many, and it must have taken you some time to get hang of it and how the process functions. So can you tell which main chapters or subtopics are in linguistics and how can a person starting from scratch prepare for it?
Sure. So I first participated in the ELO, that is the national round, in 10th grade, and I had no knowledge of linguistics at that time. After which, I gave the APLO, and then I qualified for the IOL, represented India and stuff. But I didn't win a medal that year, so obviously my preparation was weak, you can say. What I changed was I started reading more linguistics, I guess. I uh, inculcated the act of making problems. I know I obviously solved problems, but the thing is that linguistics problems are not that large in number due to the effort required to make them. So you need to have some sort of other methods to gain more intuition about languages. So the next best thing is that you make problems read about languages, I guess. So, which is what I did in 11th grade. And yeah, there's no specific book. There's just past LO questions from the IUL website and other national Olympiads.
So what do you mean exactly by reading upon languages? Like I have heard
Oh,
there are things like semantics and I don't really know, but can you
mhm.
elaborate on that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't particularly focus on a topic. I because I don't think you should as well. So what I did was I just read grammars of languages. So what they had was they introduced the, let's say, the word order in a sentence for a language. Let's say if a language is polysynthetic, that is, they don't use multiple words. They don't really have sentences, sort of. Uh, I don't think we have any polysynthetic language in the Indian subcontinent, so a lot of us might not be familiar with it. But it's basically a single word conveys the meaning for the whole sentence. Yeah, that's a lot. So yeah, I learned about different stuff in which language conveys meaning. And yeah, about the phonology part. So for phonology, there's really nothing really to that you should focus on. Most of it is of interest to linguists at the undergrad or the postgrad level. But for the linguistics Olympiad, you just need to know places of articulation of sounds. That is where they are produced in the mouth stuff. Yeah, basically the science of sound, the nature of sound.
Okay, so basically you have to read upon linguistics and have an interest in it so you can understand the various things that are associated with it. That's the takeaway, I guess.
Yeah, that sums it.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to Sahil.
Yes, so a bit about my background before the year I got selected in the team was that by the end of my class 10th, I had covered almost all of JE physics at a very basic level, that is from HCV. So, although I had not finished all the chapters, but I had a good grip on all the chapters that were relevant for NSEA. So, I gave the NSE in 10th as well, and I was barely able to clear it. But then at the INAO, I was just shy of the cutoff. But then when it came to 11th grade INAO, NSEA was not much of a hassle to clear because I had basically covered the very important chapters of JE already that were relevant there. And then after that, when I went for INAO, I did not specifically prepare for the astro component. I had basically done a lot of physics problems. And because of that, and my year's INAO was a bit physics heavy. So that helped me basically clear it with basically almost zero astro knowledge. I just knew the major zodiac signs. So after I got into the team is actually when I started studying a lot of astronomy. So from a prerequisite point of view, I don't think you really need a lot of astro knowledge. A good grip on physics and general problem solving abilities will get you through. But there are some very intro level astro concepts that would help you to clear INO.
Okay, so how did you prepare the physics needed?
Yeah, so as I said, by the end of class 10th, I had basically done HCV and like completed JE physics almost at a very basic level. And after that, in class 11th, although I was parallelly running with JE physics classes, as most people do, but on the side with it, I was like doing past year INAO problems, even INPHO problems, and some international Olympiad problems, which were basically more physics or astrophysics heavy. So that's how I prepared for the physics component before the Olympiad, so that I could get accustomed with the type of questions they ask.
Okay, thanks for your answer. Uh,
Okay, moving on to a question which bugs a lot of students who are going to start preparing for the Olympiads is how do you manage it along with the JEE? Let's start with Aditya. How have you covered your backlog, or how do you, I guess, prepare for that before going into the physics Olympiad?
So, like I said, the physics Olympiad syllabus mostly overlaps with the J physics syllabus. So, in the, I just kept preparing for J, and like that helped me for Olympiads. And then when I went for the Olympiad, yeah, I built some backlog, but I think that it is possible to clear that backlog. It isn't that much.
Uh, Okay, moving on to Atul.
Yes, so while I did not eventually give JEE, I did prepare for it. I was in Allen. But yeah, math was something I was really passionate about. So doing Math Olympiad didn't really count as studying to me. It was just like whatever free time I got, I did math because I enjoyed doing it. So for me, it wasn't really too much of a problem, I guess.
Did you face any pushback from your teachers for preparing for the Maths Olympiad, or were they also supportive of this?
Um, they were
Yes.
supportive, but they were also like, you should really focus on JEE, you should give JEE, your JEE preparation should not fall behind because of Olympiad preparation. I think at least in 11th grade, I was able to manage both of them and still do well in the other test. But yeah, towards 12th grade, I decided to focus mostly on Olympiads and sort of did not do JEE as much.
Hmm. Avnish, do you have any comments?
Well, for me, I was in class 10th, so my JE preparation wasn't at its peak, which means I had a lot of free time which I could devote to the Olympiads, which I did. And the backlog which I had due to the camp and the PDC, and obviously for the final thing, well, I did cover it. I had extra classes or backlogging also. That is in the process.
Hmm. Faraz?
Yeah. So while preparing for it, I didn't have any particular backlog, but thanks to my coaching that really covers the final part of 12 in like 2 months or so, I am currently coping up with backlog in chemistry. But yeah, you can pretty much manage it, I'm sure.
Sahil, would you like to add anything as the one person that gave G?
Yeah, so like I'll talk about my 11th grade OCSC slash Olympiad part because that's when I was like more properly preparing for JE. So due to the camp and whatever lectures I had to watch, I definitely had some backlog, but I was able to make out some free time for JE, and then I decided to just keep up with organic chemistry and a bit of physical chemistry. And I dropped math, physics, and organic chemistry. I thought that for math and physics, at least, I had a strong background in it, so it would not be much of an issue. And I thought that, okay, the rest can be handled on after the Olympiad. But truth be told, like even after the Olympiad experience, although I tried very hard to cover up all the backlog, I sort of lost interest from JEE and thus I was not able to completely catch up on the backlog. But I would say that if you have the drive, that it is definitely possible. You can like do some part of the JEE preparation along with Astro Camp, unless you're physically there. I was not physically there, but maybe you can manage it. And definitely after it, if you are that good enough that you can make it to the Astro Camp, then your coaching probably also cares about your JEE rank and they'll make efforts to help you clear the backlog, which my coachings also did.
Okay, so thank you for your answer. Now, there is a significant difference in the type of questions asked in INO and in OCSC for most of the subjects. So, what was the change in your strategy from INO to OCSC, Aditya?
So for OCSC, I had to read up some topics like special relativity and a bit of quantum mechanics. Um, and like even though those topics are in the syllabus, they aren't asked you at too high level. They are asked mostly to a basic level. I for special relativity, I read the special relativity chapter in Morin, and for the book David Morin, and for quantum mechanics, I basically used internet and also the quantum mechanics that we study in chemistry for J preparation. That also helps a lot. And obviously, the experimental part was there in OCSC. For me, that was the most challenging part. And yeah, and like thanks to my coaching, they provided like some familiarity sessions with the lab, so I was able to do it.
Okay, so did you do any specific thing for OCSC which you did not do for INO in terms of theory, apart
Yeah,
from
so
quantum mechanics and relativity?
mm, not really. I just practiced some more problems. Not much theory though.
Okay, so the INO and the OCSC TST problems are roughly at the same level, or are OCSC ones much more tougher?
I think the level is the same, but the format is a bit different. So in INTHO, the problems that they give um, are like individual problems, and in OCSC, the problems you get are much like IPhO. So they make a long problem, and each problem has like so many different parts that is not there in IPhO.
Okay, so subpart 5 scoring is what you also need to get a good score in OCSC tests, while INPHU has single block type problems.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for answer. Let's move on to Atul.
Yeah, I think at least for the Math Olympiad, the biggest gap is between IOQM and RMO because for RMO, you actually start doing proof based math. After that, the problems don't really feel as different. All they are is just they're harder because you'll need to come up with ideas or stitch together multiple ideas to create a solution that works. And yeah, also I guess Math Olympiad questions are not really, they don't make the problem harder by like making it longer, but the content of the solution is just going to be harder to come up with. For instance, like in the actual International Math Olympiad, each day we have three problems and like all of them together fit in half a page.
Okay, so that means the problems get tougher, but not in terms of their length, but in terms of their thinking and analytical skills required.
Yeah,
So,
it's not necessary that a hard problem will have a long solution, it'll just be a difficult solution to come up with.
okay, so how did you start preparing for the tougher stages?
I think I preferred these tougher stages because I think after having understood like how proofs work and how to write up those things, I actually find those sort of problems more enjoyable. So yeah, I wasn't really preparing for the IOQM part as much. When I began, I was mostly already looking at like the proof-based subjective things.
Okay, thanks for your answer. So, Avanish,
Yes, so for me, I would say that just a minute, listen.
uh, okay, we'll get back to that later. Faraz,
Yeah, you don't have an INO here, but you have the APLO. So the main difference between the first stage and the APLO is that in the APLO you're required to describe your rules by which you have figured out the answers. So you've constructed a sentence in the language, and now you're required to state the rules by which you have figured out how to construct that sentence.
okay, so APLO is again more of a subjective based test.
Yeah, it's the same as the IOL.
Okay, so how did you change your preparation strategy from PLO to APLO?
Well, I just started practicing a different set of problems because, but yeah, so I shifted to more problems from the IOL.
Okay, so you increase that difficulty up to IO level to prepare at that standard.
Yeah, actually, I think APLO is tougher than the IOL.
Oh, okay. So if APO is tougher than the IOL, how did you prepare for problems that were like above IOL or at APL levels?
I could not actually. I just had to. hope that I would be able to solve them.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So Avanish is back. Avanish, can you continue what you were saying?
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. My network kind of bailed on me. So as I was saying, for INCHO to OCSC, my main strategy was to focus on the practicals because however well you do in theory, if you can't do anything in practicals, it's kind of like a setback. So I focused on practicals. I did a lot of questions, previous year questions, and I will try to get maximum scores in them, both theory and practical, obviously. And for the level of questions, I mainly refer to IChO previous year problems.
Okay, so more practice and focus on practical aspect of the
Yes,
chemistry. Okay.
yes.
Sahil, for you, I have also an additional level. Astronomy, as we all know, has an observational round also. So can you also elaborate on that in your answer?
Yeah, the big change in the format of the exam from INO to say OCSC level is that we have, like, mimicking the international stage. The OCSC also has three parts of the examination. One part is theory, which is theory problems, physics-based problems mostly, or some astronomy part. That accounts for like 50% of the total marks. Then the rest 50% is broken down equally into a data analysis component, which is about graphs and like reading off of data to get inferences. And the last 25% is observation using telescopes or maybe inside a planetarium. So in my 11th grade, I did not have an OCSC, so I'll talk about my 12th grade OCSC. But again, like, I did not really prepare for the OCSC in 12th grade. But the main changes, I guess, that happened from the INO level to OCSC level is that INO is more suited to the IOAA exam format. There are some differences, but still, like, the problems are compartmentalized and there is a flow of the problem. Like, there's part A, part B, and like, you sometimes know how the problem is going to like proceed, which is very common in physics olympiads, and that is also seen at the IOA in most cases. But at the OCSC, the format is for some reason very different in the problems themselves. Like, although there may be subparts, but the level of the problems are significantly different. So even though the Indian team might get say, suppose like 70% or 80% of the total marks at the IOAA, in the OCSC, like, the top scores hover around 40% or 50%. So the problems are much more involved in OCSC than at the international level, and that carries over into all the three fields almost in theory, in data analysis, and in observation. So the main part that I prepared, I guess, in 11th grade from an OCSC point of view, although I did not have OCSC, was observing and using a telescope. So although the type of telescope we use each year changes, but yeah, that is something I did practice. And I guess practicing past year IOA data analysis problems would also be helpful. Even though the level of difficulty is very much different in the OCSC, it's a good first step to deal with data analysis problems by starting with international Olympiad problems
Okay,
after you
so
clear INO.
astronomy also has a feature of facilitators, which I believe most of the other Olympiad camps don't. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so facilitators, or as we call them, FACIs, are previous year IOA medalists that are usually based in India, that come over to train the people at the OCSC for the selection process. So most of these people are at IIT Bombay or at IISc and so on, and they basically come over, and the procedural part of the exams is very much handled by them along with the professors at the OCSC. So they propose problems. They sometimes teach us what is more relevant to the International Olympiad. And yeah, that's what FACIs are. They're basically past year medalists that come back to train people at the OCSC.
Okay, so open question to all of you. Do other Olympiads have this sort of a previous medalistic interaction thing?
In Math Olympiad, for sure. Like, in fact, most of the training is done by people who participated in like Math Olympiad in the past and like won medals, some of them. In fact, for our team selection tests, we also have something called arbitration, where once they give us our points, we are allowed to argue for points if we believe we need more points on a particular problem. So, in fact, that's a day of arbitration where all of them are like the arbitrators. There's usually like three or four of them. We go fight for our points too. That's quite fun. But
Okay.
yeah, in general, they also teach at the IMO training camp and otherwise also to like give stuff that is like more recent because there are some types of problems that are coming more often in recent Olympiads, for instance.
Okay. Thank you for your answers.
Moving on, knowing that most of you have experience in other Olympiads, like say junior science or astronomy, how much would you say that has helped you in your preparation for the Olympiad you're currently in or have succeeded in? Aditya, you can go first.
So for me, I, I participated in IJSO 2021. Um, so basically, going into the IJSO in the process, I got a lot more familiar with laboratory, and that was quite useful in IPhO. Like I said, the main challenge for me was the experimental part. And as for the theory, I think IJSO built a foundation for me. So it was pretty useful. Yeah.
How much would you say the experimental portion of IJSO correlated with that of IPhO?
Hmm. Actually, the experiments were a lot different, but the thing that you need is familiarity with lab because in IPH experiments, it will be something like you have never seen before. So, and like even if you have seen, they make it in an innovative way. So, something you do in a traditional way, they will make the same experiment, but they will do in a new way. So, for that, you need familiarity with the equipments that are used in lab, and that I got through IJSO.
Okay, Atul.
I prepared for JSO and the Physics Olympiad, but like I don't think I cleared even the first stages. And I also think that Math Olympiad is pretty different from the others. So even with more serious preparation in other Olympiads, I don't think it would have helped Math.
Okay, I want to interject here for a little bit. Maybe it is going on a tangent, off on a tangent, but many people have this idea that Math Olympiad is a lot about IQ. So, what are your takes on that?
I think IQ only tests how good you are at IQ tests and nothing else. It's not an actual measure of intelligence or like thinking related to Math Olympiads. I don't think there is any correlation.
Okay.
Yeah, Avnish, if you want to talk about your JSO experience.
Yes. So for me, I think the JSO preparation, what it helped me was how it helped me was that it set a foundation for me. It exposed me to well the Olympiads, and I understood what the Olympiads are, and I was able to target it. Like I decided my target. I chose chemistry instead of physics, and that was like because of my preparation. I just so I understood what I wanted to do. And secondly, it also taught me how to prepare for an Olympiad. Like how do you study? How do you give the mock tests? How do you give the final examination? And that helped the whole process because mentality during the preparation and during the exam itself was also another crucial part of it, and that was developed. I had like an advantage because I given JS. In terms of content, well, obviously there was a lot more theory to be studied, and it didn't relate to IJSO, but the other aspects of IJSO helped me a lot.
Uh, Thank you. Faraz.
Yeah, so well, I do have the experience of failing to make it to the IOA team twice in a row. Yeah, but I don't think that transfers to linguistics that well, except the fact that maybe I did gain some sort of maturity in solving problems as I learned basically how to learn stuff from my journey of preparing for the Astro Olympiads. Because when I started from preparing for the Astro Olympiads, it was the first time I had ever started to learn from textbooks. Before that, I used to just learn from uh, like very background, but yeah.
Mhm. Sahil?
Yeah, so I think my preparation for the JSO, although I did not go to the international level, I was able to go till the INJSO level. And also in math, I was able to go till the INMO level. Although content wise, that is not very relevant for astronomy, but it just gives a sense of how to deal with difficult problems, particularly in math. It helped me to like have a logical way of thinking, I guess. And even though, as you asked earlier, Archit, that it is not very well correlated with IQ, I think just doing math Olympiad problems teaches you how to think well. So, in that point of view, it was relevant, not in the content, but in the general sense. And also, like, if you can get to the national Olympiad level of these exams, which are sort of preliminary, I guess, then it gives you a sense of confidence that okay, that you are competent enough, and if you put more effort, that you can probably do better. So, in these two ways, in the general sense and in giving a confidence to me, the JSO and Math Olympiad were relevant.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So since two of you have passed, cleared grade 12th and are in colleges right now, so I want to ask, how beneficial are Olympiads for foreign university admissions? Atul.
Like, I'm sure it certainly helped, but it's not also something like you just do an Olympiad and you will get into foreign colleges. There are essays, there are other things where you have to write stuff, express like your personality and what you're interested in. And yeah, Olympiads certainly help, but I wouldn't say that they're just going to get you into colleges. And I would also say, like, don't do Olympiads just for like the sake of getting into colleges. Do it if you're actually interested or like passionate about it.
Okay, so since you are at MIT right now, how many students are there which did not go through the Olympiad route and instead came through some other co-curricular activity route from
Oh,
other
to
countries?
from other countries or from India?
I mean India, all non-US countries.
Yeah, like I know at least two people from India who are in MIT, and they play tennis, which is not an Olympiad. But yeah, I think there are people who have like come, international students who have come and like not done any Olympiad necessarily. It is true that at MIT that is slightly rare, but I think if you're looking at non-MIT also, then it's definitely possible to get in.
Okay, so if you follow your interest and just be good at whatever you do, you have a very good chance of making to some of the best colleges in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you're good at what you do and if you're interested in it, then yes.
Okay, and Sahil.
Yeah, I almost agree with everything that Atul said. And I'll talk from a bit of my experience at the international student orientation when I came here to MIT. That was probably the second highest concentration of Olympiad people had seen apart from the Olympiad themselves. And in general, okay, like MIT is slightly different than most other US colleges in that it does actually value Olympiads. There is a very well statistically correlated relation between getting an Olympiad medal and getting into MIT. But that does not apply in the reverse way, as Atul said, that if you just get a medal, that's no way near enough to get into MIT, in my opinion. So yes, I have seen, like from India at least this year, three of us have been involved with some Olympiad or the other, and two are like exceptionally good tennis players. And from other countries, for the international students body at my class of MIT 2027, like most of them are Olympiad people, but then again, like there are some international students who have done sports or some other extracurricular activities. Like my roommate himself, he has not done Olympiads, but there are many other things that he has does and he is passionate about, and MIT does value that. So even if you don't get into MIT because it does prioritize Olympiad people a bit for international students, there are definitely other very, very good colleges that value something other than Olympiad. And it's not necessary that you need to do Olympiads to get into a US college. And that should also be the motivation for you to not proceed with Olympiads just because you want to get into a good college, but do it because if only if you're passionate. And that attitude does also help with the preparation for these Olympiads.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the next question. How much would you say, how much external help would you say you got during your Olympiad preparation? Like, say, from coaching institutes or other, I guess, tuition services, so to say. Aditya, you can start.
So J preparation definitely helped, and apart from the normal J preparation, my coaching didn't provide really any material for the Olympiads in theory, but I got some help in experimental part because they held some lab familiarity sessions. Also, I would say even the school helped a little bit because I had to do experiments in school. So that also gave me at least some familiarity with lab. But the school experiments are like at a lot different level than the Olympiad experiments.
Okay, thank you. Atul?
For the initial stage, like earlier, it was called PRM instead of IOQM. I think Alan did have some material and they had some weekly classes, I think that probably had. But beyond that stage, I don't think like any coaching institute or school really helped. All the like external help I received was from online resources and past Math Olympiad people who helped. Yeah.
Okay, Avanish?
Well, the teachers at my coaching really helped a lot, especially during actually throughout the process. Before NSCC, the main goal was finishing maximum syllabus, as much of the syllabus as I could. So we used to have classes late at night every day. So we were speeding through the IOC and OC syllabus. Then for after I cleared NSCC, then we focused on solving problems. So used to get us interesting problems and challenging problems for INCHO. And once that happened, for the OCSC camp, he also helped us in the discussion of the preparatory problems that Switzerland had given. So lot of support.
And what about the experimental portion? Would you say they help in that?
Yes, after the INCHO, we did. I had many. I spent I think about a month in the lab with the practicals.
Faraz?
Yeah, don't expect any help from coaching in this Olympiad, I guess. But because the community is very closely knit, there's the chair of the APLO on the Linguistics Discord server who like helped me with problems. So if that counts as external help, probably.
Mhm. Sahil?
Yeah, for the Olympiad specifically, I don't think I got any help from the coaching institutes, but they did help me technically like finish the syllabus for physics, and that did help me in my Olympiad. But like say after getting into the camp or after getting into the team, there is very little support that the coaching institutes can offer to you, and it's like honestly the OCSC the way it is organized is more than enough to cover the content relevant for the upcoming exams from the OCSC stage. So much more help from the HBCSC, which is the organizing body here in India, than the coaching institutes.
Okay, thank you for the answers.
Okay, so next I want to ask about some memorable moments or some funny things which happened during international Olympiads or during OCSC for you guys. I'll start with Sahil.
Okay, I'll start with International Olympiad first then go to OCSC because I had just won OCSC and it was very, very fun. But okay, International Olympiad, I'll talk about the one in 2022 first. So what happened was, like, we had not gotten to go out much during the Olympiad, but on the final day we decided with one of the guides over there that we should go out. And the final day was the closing ceremony day. So we basically spent the entire day outside, and by the time we came back to the ceremony, all the bronze medal like awards had already almost finished. So like honorable mention was gone and bronze medals were gone, and we did not know if we get a medal yet in the bronze medals thing. And then yeah, thankfully it was not in the bronze medals. But yes, our team leaders were definitely very angry at us for making very poor life choices. Then, fun thing, I guess, in 2023, that is also a part of IOA tradition in general, is that we have cultural evenings. And over there, like all the countries bring up their own songs or their own culture as a part of a performance for other people to enjoy. So what we ended up doing this year, and Sainavaneet was also there, is that we ended up performing lungi dance on stage, and it was very fun. Like we had pants underneath, but we wore lungis as towels, and at the end of the dance, we were flinging around the towels and throwing it at the audience. It was definitely very fun to interact with people all over the world with similar interest and doing stuff like this. For the OCSC, the final thing I'll say is that the most memorable night over there was when, like, I think all the exams had finished and we were just sitting in the lecture hall and doing random stuff very late in the night. And somehow Archit ended up breaking one of the facilitators' phone. So that was definitely one moment. Like there are many other things that if I start talking, I'll probably not finish. But yeah, Archit did end up breaking the phone of one of the organizers of the Olympiad, which is a high moment for Astro Olympiad history. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
My rise to fame.
Yes, definitely.
Right. Next to Faraz, you can talk about maybe some linguistics Olympiad experience or Astro OCSC if you want to.
Yeah. So there's one thing at the IOL that happened this year. So the IOL has a team contest as well as an individual contest. So the team contest happens after the individual contest, and basically we were really tired after the individual contest and decided to just lay off the time in the team contest because one, it doesn't really matter. It's just like a fun thing, and two, if it's fun, probably doesn't need uh, any of our attention, I guess. So what I did was I basically did wall handstands during the team contest, and our invigilator, which was the Thailand team leader, noticed us and decided to write about us on her Facebook page. She was like, the Indians here are exactly how I imagine. They do yoga and handstands during for for I don't know. And OCSC, yeah, there are a lot of things about OCSC, and Archit, you would know better, right? Yeah, but I think probably OCSC, one of the best moments was sitting in the back of the bus and playing songs that I must not name.
Uh, that was fun, right? Yeah. Okay, moving on to Avaneesh.
Honestly, I don't have any such crazy stories like you guys, but I could something I found very interesting about the ICO was that what happened was all of us, like about 350 to 400 people, they were taking us on an excursion, and where we had to go was 2 hours away, 2 3 hours away by train. So what they ended up doing was they actually rented a train for all of us, and like especially on the board there was a train known as the ICO train that was running just on that day for the 400 people that was going to travel through Switzerland for 2 hours to get us where we wanted, and like the whole day we were on the train. The train was specially for us, and that's something I found I thought was very interesting for country to do in the organization. And the other fun thing that happened was on the last day when, well, after the closing ceremony there was a huge party. So like up to 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning the people dancing, and well, yeah, there was a lot of chaos after the medals were awarded.
Okay. Yeah, that must be fun. 400 people, that is a so there are 400 plus people at the IChO.
Yeah, well, there were actually 300 and 300 plus students, and then there were guides. So 50, like, so how many? There were 89 countries. Each country had a guide. 358 to 360 students, and then some like the organizing committee members, like more than 400, 450 people.
My God, yeah, that must have been fun. Okay, so moving on to Atul.
I'm also had some interesting incidents. Like before the papers on each of the 2 days, I think a large number of people just decided it would be a good idea to do like 20 push-ups just before starting writing. And I have no idea why, but like just everyone just starts doing push-ups at that point. So that was interesting. And I think also during the contest, someone in front of me, he just like slept on the, like we sit on chairs, but he just slept on the floor. And when the organizers came to ask if something was wrong, he said, "No, I just want to relax." It's like he was just sleeping on the floor for a while and then like got up and
Oh my God.
started writing again. I don't know how they did on the Olympiad, but yeah, that was interesting. And also one more thing was because half of the IMO team was like vegetarian, and IMO happened in Japan. So finding vegetarian food was like an interesting thing. So I think this was our best performance in like 20 years or something. So our deputy leader, who is our observer A, who's also vegetarian, he was like, I will treat you people at a restaurant. So we went to a restaurant and then we like tried to get vegetarian food, but we got various versions of the food. First was non-vegetarian, then it had pork, then it had fish, and then like we just gave up. And then we went to like some fancy restaurant on the 50th floor of the building, and then the only vegetarian thing we had was like desserts and French fries. So yeah, it was unfortunate. But I think like the non-vegetarians had fun.
I
Okay,
actually
before we
want to
move to
add to
other,
that.
sorry.
When I went to Colombia for IJSO, what happened was that when you ask for vegetarian food, they understand you're asking for vegetarian, but the problem is they have different stuff that that falls under the category of vegetarian. So, like my team members who were vegetarian, they had sometimes they ended up eating some meatballs, or they were offered fish as vegetarian. Also, it was very chaotic. You can't just trust vegetarian for what it is. You have to really ask if it's. Or sometimes you give it to a non-vegetarian in the group and ask him to taste it, him or her to taste it. Is it veg? What do you think it is? And so yeah.
Yeah, I think
Oh, no.
like you specifically had to ask, is there meat here? Is there
Yes.
fish here?
What
What
is
oil
it?
is this?
Which
And
meat?
so
Yeah.
on. Yeah. And also, okay, speaking of IMOTC, I think IMOTC was, at least for me, less studying and like just more hanging out with people and having fun. Like we just used to play Mafia all night. We used to play card games like Fish. And since everyone's talking about Archit, I will also say like Archit read the hands and predicted futures of many of the Math Olympiad people. That was interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, before we move to Aditya, Sahil, would you like to add anything about the push-ups?
The push-ups.
American team.
Oh, no, I will not speak about that at the International Olympiad, I think. But yeah, we did definitely have some fun. Like I called them over to my room at 3 a.m. and there was one specific guy that I'd like to give a shout out to from Austria, Thailand, and like yeah, like he made the Olympiad experience very, very fun. So I don't have any like specific comments to give out, but yes, like I just want to say that like all this Olympiad preparation seems like a lot of work, and like you might think that the people who get here are not human or something like that for the general audience. That is not true. We do definitely have a lot of fun at the Olympiad and through the process. I can definitely attest that for Archit as well. Like the camp was very, very fun actually, and not like there is competition, but it is overall a very fun experience, and you should definitely do Olympiads in some capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
actually, I want to add one thing to that, especially in like Math Olympiad, people think like when they hear math, they're like old men with like paper proving random theorems and like not sleeping, not leaving their room all like month or something. But like Math Olympiad is not like that. We're like fun people. We like to have fun. IMO TC is fun, IMO is fun, and so on. So yeah, we are definitely human. When I began Olympiad, I was like, these people I will never actually be able to, like, I don't know, talk to and be with. But now I'm in that position. So yeah, like anyone can like do math Olympiad. It's not like you have to be some sort of genius to do it.
I think that's the case with every Olympiad in which, like, when you go to the finals, what happens is no one talks about how the tests went, or no one's worried about those. Everyone's just enjoying, and we used to spend nights in the the hotel had a club up there, so that was open for us. So everyone's just enjoying their own way. We have parties up to 12 a.m., 1 a.m., whatever they want to do. No one's worried about the result. So,
Yeah, definitely. There was much more trouble of studying and preparing and remembering things before the OCSC as compared to during the OCSC. It was a much more fun and chill time where we could talk with people who had similar interests, and yeah, it was very fun. So, anybody has anything else to add?
So I think Aditya hasn't spoken on the question.
Well,
Aditya,
well, there's one thing that happened to me at APHO. Like the day before experimental exam, I climbed a hill, and it was like a shrine on the top of the hill, and that man, that hill was too big, and I climbed that, and then my legs got cramped, and I wrote that experimental exam with my legs cramped. So I suppose you can understand.
fun experience.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Maybe Sainavaneet will have something to say about mishaps at the International Olympiad this year. Like he was basically bleeding through his nose every single day of the competition. Yes, it
Fortunately,
was
it
very
wasn't
fun.
during the competition. It was just after the competitions
Still,
and
okay,
just after
yes.
the closing ceremony. Thankfully, not during the closing ceremony.
Imagine getting a silver medal while nose having a nosebleed.
It'll be better. Okay. I think it's been close to an hour. So thank you all for your time and all of your answers. We'll end the session here.
Yes. Thank you,
Recording.
everybody. Have a great day or night ahead. Thank you. Bye bye.